Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. I'm Greg Christ, one of your hosts. The other host to my right or left is Mike Pierce, the other guy. That guy
Yeah.
back over there. I always get it backwards. I don't know how. I always wonder when I'm watching videos on the internet, TikTok or something, why all the guitar players are left-handed. I think I figured out why.
There
But
you
anyway,
go.
a lot to talk about, as always, with Mountaineer Sports. And Frank, I'm joining you from Pikeville, Kentucky tonight. Come down to help my son with a little move and cozied up here in his bedroom. So,
Yeah, I can see you got stuff right there, man.
yeah, yeah, I'm surrounded. I got a lot of stuff going on. And first thing we want to mention is our show last week. And
Hmm.
boy, I tell you what a blast that was. And I've got so much positive feedback on that show, and want to make sure everybody knows they can go on and watch it anytime they want if they haven't had a chance to see it yet. It was a lot of fun.
Greg, that it's always great, particularly for me, getting back to Morgantown and working with you face to face, not just through technology. But that really was saying it was a blast is absolutely true. And
Yeah,
and also the good work of Darren being the first 4K broadcast live out of Morgantown was just fantastic. And so we had a lot of guests, a lot of important things they said too. And so
oh yeah,
watch it on Facebook, watch it on YouTube, both on New River Network and also the Voice
yep,
of College Football. We're over 5,000 views so far, and so
yeah,
a lot of fun and a lot of positive feedback, as you said.
it sure was. And I think one of the things that I took from it more than anything was, um, the fact that so many of them talked about, the feeling of getting back to WVU and what that means to them, and with the new man in charge, uh, that's I think important. And most of them expressed how happy they were to have the new guy. Uh, my, his name leaves me, Mike Johnson, maybe, um, in charge of the Mountaineer Athletic Club, and getting those guys back in the fold. And I think that's majorly important.
Well, you're exactly right. And at the same time, I think we have to understand that all programs have ebbs and flows.
Yeah,
We're seeing a lot of transition in not only football, but also men's basketball, women's basketball as players graduate, players enter the portal. You and I were talking before the broadcast that WVU made national news today because about 30 players hit the portal just in one day. And
yeah,
so, and yet that's the way it is these days. It's a free agency system. We knew that Coach Richrod had to make cuts, and that players would be moving in and out. And there we are. So I think during times of that are a little bit different, it was so great last week to see the football players so upbeat and so positive about what they experienced at the stadium and what Coach Rodriguez is doing, and that was there from the beginning to the end of the show last week.
yep, you're right. And we talked about the portal. Um, I don't think, based on what we've learned, over the past few weeks with the number of players that Coach Rodriguez had brought in, the number of spring game, that we talked about him having to pare down the roster. And we knew there were going to be a lot of people either on of uh, their own ideas, or the coach's ideas, that maybe they need to look somewhere else. And I think that we kind of saw that coming. So I don't think it, you know, I mean, I know it looks, from a national perspective, you're like, geez, what's going on there? Everybody's leaving. But in reality, he brought in a ton of players, and, trying to find people. And I think that's part of what's going on there. That after, after the spring game, I'm sure there were a large number of them, um, who got the message. And I've looked at the list. There have been a few names that I think uh, we hate to see on the list, but for the most part, it's people we haven't heard much from or about. I don't know if they're good players or not, but I don't think it's a huge surprise that we had that many in the portal. Frank, you're muted on me for some reason. Yeah, I think you did too.
Let's
Yeah, a
try
little bit of
this.
an echo.
Did that work? Am I
Yeah,
back on?
you're back. You're back.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
My mouse went places it shouldn't have gone. But
My mouse does that sometimes.
yeah, our guest tonight is Greg Hunter. In fact, he just joined the studio. And Greg has such a great way of expressing himself. And
Yep.
let me read to you what Greg wrote today in Blue and Gold News, because I thought of all the things I've read about the let's call it the exodus from the WVU program. Although that's melodramatic, I thought he really captured it. He said not only did 20 members of West Virginia's 2024 club use up their college eligibility after last season, but 22 others with remaining eligibility entered the portal. That wasn't the end of WVU's roster attrition either, as 35 others who participated in spring practice also have left the program. The most recent departures include tight end Jack DeMarco, and he goes on and names them. But with the recent movement, West Virginia has 28 scholarship players and 13 walk ons who are on the 2024 roster, and they're still on the team. To the returning group, WVU had 42 new players enrolled at the beginning of spring, 30 transfers and 12 true freshmen. But out of those January enrollees, 8 have left the program, including 6 who are true freshmen. So at the moment, the roster currently shows 41 players remaining from the 2024 roster, along with 34 others who enrolled at WVU in January. And he finalizes it by saying further departures are not only possible, but likely, at least until the transfer portal closes next week. And so when you think about just a couple of weeks ago, guys, I think there were like 110 guys on the roster. Now we're obviously much lower at 74, which means with the 105 limit, you can add to that. So we've never seen anything like this. We're living through history.
Yeah, it's a sign of the times, and it's a mess to say the least. But yeah, that's just the way it is right now. You look at what's going on in Tennessee and some other places with other players. Uh, this thing's just spinning wildly out of control, and I'm not sure. And I know, I've listened to Greg and Tony and those guys talk about this numerous times, and their ideas for solutions and things that may or may not happen, and the way to get it under control. And they're spot on with, in my opinion, of their assessments of that. And hopefully, somewhere along the line, this can be gotten under control. I don't think anybody, is opposed to anyone getting paid. I think most of us that watch have always felt like that, those guys deserve to be paid and that sort of thing. But there's just no right now. There's no boundaries. There's no ropes, and it's just rampant. But again, I think like we talked earlier with the number of players that Coach Rich Rodriguez had brought in. I mean that number is high, obviously, but I can't help but think that you know he knew what was coming and understands that and has left room for folks to bring in. So hopefully uh, you know, hopefully it all works out. So anyway, uh, we'll get. I can't wait to hear Greg's take on that because he has the inside information and knows what's going on and follows it closely. So it'll be interesting to hear what what his thoughts are. Also, Frank, we want to mention, of course, the baseball team. We got all kind of good stuff going on up there now. The baseball team just continues to roll along, and I think the news that they broke into the top 25. I'm like, I hadn't paid any attention to that, and then I'm thinking they're 30 or 31-4. How are they not in the top 25 already? But they just keep rolling along, and man, what a team to watch! They're fun to watch.
They certainly are. I think the answer, Greg, from what I've been able to, in fact, I studied this because it didn't make any sense to me. It's the RPI.
Yeah.
West Virginia's RPI has been in the 30s. And so as a consequence, it's not surprising to see them not in the top 25. And the bottom line is now they've won 7 straight on the road. They've won how many? 11 straight games.
Yeah.
There are 15 games left in the Big 12. One of the big things about the team and last night's victory, I mean, you probably watched it, I did, with a stolen base in the top of the ninth, and then a great relief job to win that game. The Mountaineers came from behind in Marshall, but the big storyline, I think, in the Big 12 is the 2 best teams in the league look to be WVU and TCU. And because of the expanded Big 12, they don't play in the regular season. So we're going to have to see what happens in the Big 10 tournament. And of course, TCU will have an advantage because the games are played in Arlington. But that is what a bit, if this is not the best or one of the best Mountaineer baseball teams ever. It's just it's so exciting to see these guys scrap. They're number 1 in the Big 10 in pitching in terms of ERA, and they're number 2 in the Big 12 in terms of hitting with, I think, a 370 average. So it's a well-rounded team.
Yep. And they're a lot of fun to watch. They just play an exciting brand of baseball, and they're relentless. They just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming.
Yep.
Never give up, and
that's right.
Fun to watch them, and they're good, and that's what makes it even better because they're a good team. We also had a young lady got drafted into the WNBA. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing both on men and women is, players have used up their eligibility, and with the situation on the men's team is obviously more complex. We'll talk with Greg Hunter about that. But JJ was the 3rd pick from the Big 12 in the 3rd round, and my God, she's going to the Dallas team, and they picked up obviously the best player in the country in Paige Buckers. And what I've read is it's JJ's defense that will probably serve her well, probably give her playing time in Dallas, not just her offense, which was so important at WVU defense too. But and the other thing is that Coach Kellogg is bringing in a number of really good players, both transfers and also 1 freshman. And so I think the roster now is 9 or 10 women. And so he's gearing up for next year too.
Yep.
And we're excited about that team.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I said, there's so many good things going on right now. I noticed, basketball starting to bring in some folks and sign some folks. That's going to be interesting. And of course, we have all the news about the departure of Coach DeVries. We'll talk about that and harp on that, but that's in the news every day as well. And it's been an interesting time and like I said, exciting time. I think just based on what we found out last week at Kegler's, talking to all the former players and that sort of thing, it just seems like the excitement around the program is ticking back up, and I think a lot of people are really looking forward to what's coming up in the fall. And I just hope, and we've talked about this. You just hope that the expectations, are not over the top, and people understand it takes a while, and it takes new. Even though Coach Rodriguez has been here before, he's coming back into the program new, and it's going to take a little while to get things established and get his brand lined up. And you already hear people talk about, well, they won the Sugar Bowl, they did this, they did that. can't wait for that to happen. And it's not going to happen tomorrow. So yeah, hopefully people could be a little bit patient. So
Great.
we'll just see. But the excitement is high, and like I said, it was a fun time at Kegler's and up in Morgantown, and got to talk to so many former players, and that was a ton of fun. Of course, when you have Joe Zwiak and Freddie Smalls and those people, uh, taking over the show, that always makes it better. So we just got to kick back and let them have it, and man, it was a blast.
That's right. And we're going to have a blast tonight because we've got
right.
a great guest.
Enough of us yapping along. For anybody that knows anything about Mountaineer sports, they either learned it from this guy or they've heard this guy, and he's known throughout the state, probably the East Coast, and now out west, even with the Big 12. And it's a honor and a privilege to welcome him to our show. Greg Hunter is our guy, and we are looking so forward to talking. Greg, there he is, magically, he appears.
Well, hello guys, how y'all doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for being here.
Oh, absolutely, and thanks for the introduction. I think that just typically means I'm old when you give me all those accolades. So yeah, I've been doing it for a long time, and I've enjoyed it, and I'm very happy to be on with you guys.
Well, I'm old too, and nobody knows who I am. so what happened here, Frank? I've been doing this radio and TV stuff for 10 years now, and was a coach for 30 years. And I always said the only way people knew me is if they had an adjective before my name, and it wasn't coach. Something else did coach. So anyway, Greg, it's great to have you. We appreciate you jumping over. We know you have duties as well to perform each day, and we love listening to you on the radio. It's always fun to listen to you guys, and so knowledgeable. And I think you heard us discuss it a little bit, the exodus of players from the football program today, and we wanted to get first and foremost. We're going to go back to you here in just a minute. We want to learn a little bit more about you, but we want to hear about your thoughts on what's going on with the football program right now.
Well, I mean, as you said it, I mean, the exodus, and as of right now, there are 28 players who were scholarship players who were on last year's club who are still with the program. So, I mean, that just tells you the turnover that they've had. And they've already got, I'm looking at my list right now because it changes by the moment, but they've already got over 30 newcomers who came in January who are now here. And there are going to be another 10 or 15 who joined this team between now and start practice in August. So, I mean, it's not completely rebuilt, but it's built from, certainly the basement up, maybe not from the foundation up, but from mid-basement up. It's a whole lot of new players and obviously an entirely new coaching staff as well. So some guys we know, Jaheim White, Nico Marchio, and some of those, but for the most part, you're going to need a program when you come to Mountaineer Field next year.
Where do you see all this? I know we've talked about this ad nauseum on here, and I know you guys have discussed it quite a bit. Where do you see all this going? I mean, there has to, at some point, there has to be some barriers put up, or something put in place to to stop all this. I mean, it's gotten to the point really where it's just crazy. I mean, you can't even. Like you said, you don't know anybody's name on the roster, and it's year after year after year, and that's in every program. It's not just WVU; it's everywhere. And I mean, you saw the case in Tennessee, what's going on there, and what a mess. And what do you think? And like I said, I know you guys have discussed this a lot. What's got to happen? What is going to happen? What's got to happen? What do we hope happens?
Now that's the $1 million question. I'm sure you guys have probably talked about it, and I know most of your those that are watching and listening to your podcast know about the House settlement, which hasn't been approved yet, but is soon going to be, and that's going to put a few barriers in place to keep maybe some of this volatility from happening in the future. It's never going back to the way it used to be. First of all, it was too tight in the past, and the NCAA it took them too long to you get into modern times that a kid was bound to their school for an eternity. If they'd loosened some things up way back when, I don't think it would have gotten to the free-for-all that we are now in. But I think the House settlement, while it's still going to cause some turmoil, is going to at least settle things down a little bit. You're going to have some rules that you know that you got to deal with and you got to play by. So we'll see. But again, will you have 50 newcomers every year? I hope not. When you have new coaching staffs, obviously that changes a whole lot of it. But I did see today, and that somebody put out that in college Division I basketball, and obviously there are over 300 D1 schools, but 44 of them have 10 or more players in the portal. That actually doesn't even include West Virginia, because the Mountaineers had, half the guys who left. They do have a number of portal departures from men's basketball, but so many of them were already seniors who were leaving anyway. So West Virginia isn't one of those 10, though they're going to have an entirely new roster for Ross Hodges' team as well. But that just tells you it's such a nationwide thing. The coaches want restrictions. They don't want to go back to the old days because they don't think that was fair. But they do want some restrictions in terms of the NIL financing of it, and then a little bit of the roster movement. It's not going back to where you can't transfer, and maybe not transfer multiple times, but at least slow down the portals. And I know in Coach Rod, and talking to him, he'd like to have one portal opening rather than two, because the second one creates even more havoc.
Yeah, and I don't know a lot about it. Don't claim to be an expert by any means, but it just appears to me that there's got to be some institutional boundaries. So, on the universities and the way this money is raised and put aside to pay players. Because you hear, the quarterback at Tennessee there, I think, was getting $2.5 million or something in that neighborhood. And again, I'm not opposed to any of them getting paid. I think they deserve to be paid. They should be paid. I think the name, image, and likeness thing should be theirs. But I think institutionally, I think there's got to be some way to keep, these big money schools from hoarding all this money and players. But anyway, that there's all kinds of ideas about solutions to to what solves the problems. But I'm like you, it's definitely not going back the way it was. You just hope that there's some sort of at least a gate put up to just slow it down just a little bit, because it really, from a fan's perspective, of course you don't like it because you got your players and your team. You want your players to be loyal to your team and stay there. But, at the same time, you look at it and say, if that were my son or daughter and they had the opportunity to, to make, a couple $100,000 a year going somewhere else, why would they not? And so you can't blame them. But hopefully they'll get some control some way. But the NCAA, as we know, is more reactive than proactive, and I think the things that they try to do, as shown in the past, that just aren't really legal or work very well. It's almost like they've thrown up their hands on the whole thing. But anyway, enough about that for right now. Let's talk about you for a second. We like I said, all us Mountaineer fans know you. We know who you are. We've seen you at games. We see you on the broadcast and listen to you on the talk show. How did you get your start? When did all this come about? How did you get your start? And how did you end up getting into the position that you have gotten into with Mountaineer sports?
Man, it goes back a long ways. I was born in Wisconsin, but my dad came here, got a job as a professor at WVU when I was 10. So we came to Morgantown. I'm 10. So I go through the rest of school here, go through high school. I went away back to Wisconsin to play football for a year, but then came back and finished up my college days at WVU and in journalism. I decided I wanted to be a journalist. And a few years later, one of my best friends, still is, as a matter of fact, Bob Busey and I were saying, you know what? There are these publications out there, back when there used to be print publications, And, there are a lot of them that are very school specific. And, there was a Blue and White Illustrated at Penn State. There was Buckeye Sports Bulletin at Ohio State. And there were all these all over the country that we knew about and said, there's not one at West Virginia. What if we start that? And this was the spring of 1988. And we said, you know what, if we're going to do this, this may be a really good year because you want to sell a good product. And we thought West Virginia had a chance. Of course, anybody who knows West Virginia football history, Major Harris was going to be a sophomore this year, and they had so much coming back off the 87 season. And we hit it right. And that team ends up playing for the national championship in the Fiesta Bowl, ultimately losing. But that just sort of started it. The next year, Tony Caridi, who was pretty new to the radio business in Morgantown, having only been here a couple years, he's doing the sports talk show with Sportsline for Metro News. And he says, you know what, would you like to come in and help me one day a week? And be a co-host. So I started doing that, and one day turned into 5, turned into 6, and I've been doing it ever since. So it doesn't seem like so what's that, 37 years ago? That's hard for me to even say. But I've been rolling along, and it's a whole lot better than actually working for a living. So I've enjoyed every minute of it. I've seen plenty of good times and also some heartbreak. When you follow West Virginia sports, you don't have to be a fan. Those of us, and I'm not going to pretend that I don't have rooting interests. I'm supposed to be unbiased, but that's obviously not true. It's been an enjoyable 37 years. I'll say that. And like I said, there's so many people like you all that have really taken this thing to a new level. I mean, I didn't have a fax machine for the first 10 years we were in business. Say nothing of ever thinking about internet and podcasts and all that. I thought the radio show was cutting edge. How that has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And Frank will attest to this. You mentioned the Fiesta Bowl with Major Harris, and we confirmed last weekend that had Major not gotten hurt, we would have won the game. So we know that.
Absolutely. You get no argument from me or Coach Nealon or anybody else about that one.
I laugh every time I mention Major Harris. I had him on and I asked him again this past week or last week when we were up there about the year before that when they played in the Sun Bowl. I actually went out to the Sun Bowl and I've asked him about the 2-point conversion play several times at the end of the game when we had a chance to win. And we threw an incomplete pass and lost by 1 point. And Major swears that the play was perfect. He just made a bad pass because I told him that Coach Nealon should have got him in the huddle and said, okay, Major, you go get 2 points for us right now. Just take off and go get them. And he would have got it. So, but he says, no, that's not right. That's a good play call. Good play call. So anyway, I always laugh when I think about Major. You mentioned Tony Caridi. Tony's kind enough to join us on the show one night, and that was a blast. But you guys worked together for quite a while now. One of the things I think in listening to you and Tony and so the other folks you have on regularly is you can just tell you guys first of all have a great relationship on air, and it seems like you blend so well together and have such a good time. It's really fun to listen and you make it. You make it enjoyable to listen to, and I think you guys working together, it's pretty obvious that you have a wonderful working relationship. Talk about that just a little bit.
I think we've all worked with people that maybe it's a bit of a chore at times, but I'll admit, starting with Tony, Travis Jones and I have done this Sunday night show exclusively for 25 years, more than that. 96 was our first year of that one. So it's coming up on 30 as well. Brad Howe, he's the new guy. He's only been around for 10 years. They're really great people, and it's fun to work with them. It's one of those things we can never do it because I don't think it would be even allowed on a podcast. But, for instance, yesterday, Brad, Tony, and I rode down to the Mountaineer Invitational Golf Tournament in Bridgeport at Pete Dye Country Club. When you drive with those guys, I mean, it's better than any comedy show. I just sit in the back seat and laugh. And I mean, some of it is just funny and some of it is recollections, stories that come out. And I really do. And maybe that's why I've done it so long. It's certainly not getting me rich, but I enjoy it because I work with those people who I really, really like and are some of the best friends I have in life.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that really shows through. You can just hear it. I mean, when you listen, you can just tell that you guys are friends. I mean, you can tell the relationship there just by listening to you talk and the jockery back and forth. And I think he refers to you as Coach Hunter all the time and Senator Hal.
Yeah. Yeah. Tony's great with handing out nicknames. I used to coach freshman football. It was called junior high football back then because the ninth graders went to junior high, not to high school in Morgantown. So he heard some of my players calling me Coach Hunter when we first started the show, and I've been stuck with that ever since. Most people don't even know my real name. It's just Coach.
Frank, you want to jump in?
Well, it flows, and that's the most important thing. And also, you guys are just so knowledgeable, and it makes it look easy, and we know it isn't. I was also going to say, we're looking for connections. One of the things that I was talking about with my wife today, Kathy, who's also a WVU alum, she worked at Newburgh in Preston County, and I said, hey, Craig Hunter, our guest tonight, I don't know, did you get your start at Preston County for the papers there?
Yeah, my first job out of college was with the Preston County News, and I worked up there. And anybody who's worked for a small newspaper, I was a sports guy, but I also covered the school board meetings, county commission, car accident, you name it. It was a great training ground. Helped lay out papers that got me going. So yeah, I got deep Preston County roots with that. My wife's from Preston County, but yeah, my first job up there, first several years, was working. Actually, our office is in Terra Alta, but you're all over that county, so that was a great education.
Yeah.
Did you ever cover the Buckwheat Festival?
Oh, yeah. If you're in Preston County, you're covering the Buckwheat Festival. I've been ate many a buckwheat cakes, been to many of the parades. It's a classic in Kingwood, but there are every little town in Preston County has their own little 4th of July festival, or everyone. Terra Alta has one. Brewston has one. Everybody's got their own. They're fun.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, my wife and I used to have a little business. We sold these dry food mixes and things, and we got invited to come up to the Buckwheat Festival one year. And somebody who'd been there before said, you need to be prepared. So we go up there, not having any idea what was going to happen. We were in the fire station, had 3 or 4 bays in the fire station. That's where all the vendors set up. They opened the doors the first morning on Thursday, and it was just a sea of people, and it was nonstop all day long for 4 days. The only time we got a break was when they had the parade, because they had the biggest parade I've ever seen in 3 small towns, and we would get about an hour break, and it was wonderful. But I've never seen anything quite like it with the number of people that showed up for that thing. It was just absolutely amazing. And anyway, it's not about me here. I want to ask you another question about the football program. We, like I said, talked to several players that played before back in the day, and all of them that we talked to mentioned the fact that they felt really good about coming back to WVU and being welcomed back. In the fold. Seemed like some of that had kind of left a little bit, drifted away a little bit, and there was a little bit of hard feelings with some folks and that sort of thing. But it seems like with Coach Rich Rod coming back and some other folks in different positions, it seems like there's a more welcoming atmosphere now for the former players, which we thought was extremely important. What's your feel on that? Do you pay any attention to that type of thing, or have you noticed that or heard that?
Well, I definitely think that there is, a welcoming aspect, because Rich was a player himself, not just the coach here. So he goes back to the 81, I think, was his first year. So for, over, 40 years now, he's been a huge part of West Virginia, other than that gap of 17 years. So players know him. I do think that Neil was trying to reach out and trying to be welcoming to the alums. The coach before that, no, not so much. But I do think Neil was trying, but he didn't have the same connections that Rich did. And then Rich's staff also includes a Jeff Castile, who was so much a part of many of those teams throughout all of Rich's time, but then also Bill Stewart's time as well. So you have, I think, more people around the program now that know the players, so they feel more comfortable now. And I do think that's important. I mean, you guys have dealt with them. I mean, some of those guys are as good a guys as you can deal with. There's no bigger and better personality than Brian Joswiak. I mean, he's a huge man, but he's got a bigger heart and than that. And then all of them, Major, those people that so many others around West Virginia just grew up idolizing, getting to talk to them and then getting them back and involved in the program. I think that's really, really important. And Rich certainly has the ability to do that better than anyone, truthfully, since he left. Bill Stewart did it as well. And I said, I think that Neil was trying, but just he didn't have the same background that allowed him to do it.
Yeah, that I think you're right. That West Virginia connection and him being a player makes all the difference in the world. You mentioned Joswiak; he's been great to us and great to me, and we've become really good friends. And yeah, you get to meet these folks, and like you said, you idolize them. Watching Major Harris, I never dreamed, or Joswiak, never dreamed you'd ever actually get to talk to them and meet them, and then you do. They're just good folks, and it's nice to see them come back and be involved. And I think, again, that's important for the program in its entirety, is just to get those guys back on board. But anyway, looking forward to it. I know, like Frank and I were talking earlier, the excitement is definitely back, and people are talking about it and really looking forward to it, I think. And no knock on anybody prior to Coach Rodriguez coming back, but I think he brings that element of he's a West Virginia guy, and that's what people here want. And I think the excitement is over the top, so it's going to be fun. Frank, I don't mean to keep taking all the time. Go ahead.
Well, I'm taking notes, guys. This is good. Actually, I'm watching too. We're simulcasting, as you know, Greg, and I'm reading Mark Parsons, whom you know, says, great interview. I have been following Greg Hunter since the printed blue and gold news days back in the 1990s. So you've got a long-term fan there. I wonder how much money Mark has spent on that, but that's good.
I appreciate that greatly. Yeah, we had a ton of loyal subscribers, and we're still, obviously, I do more than the radio. We had bluegoldnews.com now that we have formed a partnership with the Clarksburg Exponent, North Central West Virginia Media. So we partner with them we don't have a print edition anymore. Everything is online, though they'll use their stuff in various publications in Clarksburg and also all around. Charleston picks it up in Huntington. It goes all over the state. So our stuff is highly read now, but there was the affinity to having that weekly magazine that we used to put out, but those days are gone for most people.
Yeah.
And my earliest memories of Greg was I had season tickets back in the mid '80s and late '80s, and I have a friend here in Morgantown, Bob Music is his name. I don't know if Greg knows Bob or not.
Oh yeah,
everybody knows Bob. And so I kept seeing this guy out on the field taking pictures, walking around. I'm like, who is that guy? So Bob Music told me your name. He said, that's Greg Hunter. He does this, does that. That was my first memory of seeing you at the football stadium down in the end zone, taking pictures and walking around on the field.
My relationship with Bob goes way, way back. He was one of my midget league football coaches for the Suncrest Jets way back when. His younger brother, Mark was a player with me, so still close to all of them right now. So yeah, very the music family means a lot to Morgantown, means a lot to me.
Yep, and I know that that Bob was the best defensive coach that's ever
Yep.
I guess ever lived.
Yeah, his St. Francis Trojan, when he got to the high school level, they'll swear by that.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yep. Yeah, we're good friends with Bob. He's a good family friend of ours.
Mm-hmm.
Been friends for 25, 30 years. So, but yeah, I get tickled when I hear his stories, and I tell him now. I've already heard these stories, Bob. You don't have to tell me what a great coach you were. I already know. You were the best.
Hey, Greg,
Right.
we want to get your perspective on this Mountaineer baseball team that is just when like last night. Okay, the streak's coming to an end, and it didn't. The resiliency of this team and the ability to pitch when they need to pitch and hit when they need to hit. They've had some struggles with big innings, but that hasn't been recently. So, your thoughts about Mountaineer baseball and how far do you think this team can go, both in the
Boy,
Big 12 and
yeah,
nationally?
that's a good question in terms of how far they can go. Randy Basie, set the foundation. They built the new stadium. The new ballpark it was such integral to allowing Randy Basie to really take this baseball program and move it to a different stratosphere than it was before. And then I wondered, without Randy, how good Steve Sabins would be. I mean, could he just keep this thing rolling along? He seemed like a great assistant coach, but you never know when you make that leap up. And he's got a nice contingent. He returned most of his position players, other than maybe the best in Mountaineer history, and J.J. Weatherholt, which is obviously the big loss. But they had a lot of hitters and position guys coming back. They had to reload their pitching, and they've hit the portal and found some additions, both with bats, but especially on the mound. And they've been excellent. And, I know just from the enthusiastic level of fans going to King Kendrick Family Ballpark, the fans have really taken to this team greatly. And how far can they go nationally? I don't know. I mean, I covered a team several years ago when Alec Manoah took them and had them hosting a regional round. And it'd be great to see them back with an opportunity to host again, because the atmosphere for those games was incredible. And I think they have that opportunity, but they can't slip up. As you said, they're not as highly rated as you would think with their record. Their RPI is okay. It's 22 today if you look at it in terms of RPI, but they don't have a whole lot of room for their non-conference strength of schedule wasn't incredibly high, and that's probably dropped them a little further than people would realize who don't pay attention to that, because you look at their record and say, gosh, that should be a top 10 team. But they'll have opportunities in this league. You said it. They don't play Texas Christian in this league, who's very good, but Kansas is really good as well. Texas Tech traditionally is very good. They've got series with those teams coming up. Kansas State, Cincinnati this weekend, who's okay but not great. So they'll have opportunities. They keep winning, they'll be just fine, and they'll have an opportunity to get into an opportunity to host an NCAA regional. I would really be disappointed if they're even a bubble team for the NCAA tournament. I think they're solidly there, but there's a lot of season left, so I guess you can't count it too much right now.
Yeah, another area I wanted to talk with you about is this men's basketball team. Greg was talking about the exodus, and so were you. The entire Baylor team, every single player that was on the bench this year is gone. And so they have to rebuild their entire roster, not just part of it. But one of the good things that this sort of Wild West enables is for the mid-major players to be able to get a shot, many of whom didn't get a shot coming out of high school or junior college to come up. And you're seeing that now with Coach Hodge, with a player from, you have a player from University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, another one from Troy, University of North Carolina, Wilmington. So you're beginning to see a lot of these players, more of them, being able to play at a power level that otherwise might not have if the system was the way it was. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's one of the, let's say, the consequences of the system that we're in right now. And when you think of where the Mountaineers are right now, with the quick departure of Coach DeVries, I'm not sure how you could put together a quality, potentially competitive Big 12 roster without being able to bring in mid-major players.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the portal obviously exits can be great, but also the entrances can be great as well, and it does allow you to turn things around pretty quickly, or at least much quicker than it used to be. And that's football and basketball. That's why you still have hope that Rich Rod on the football side of things can be successful, even with all the departures and his first season. We remember back to his first season back in 2001. West Virginia wasn't very good. They were 3-9, but they Coach Nealon left them a base, and they continue to grow it and grow it. Well, you can't do that anymore. You got to start all over, and you bring in older players, and you bring them from various spots. And you said mid majors are a big part of that anymore. And really, you see the transfer portal used by two groups. I mean, you got the Power 5 guys that are looking for a big paycheck, and maybe they're good, maybe they're not. They move on, or maybe they weren't any good at that level and didn't get any playing time. And then you got to be a little suspicious if they can play for you. Or you get those mid majors who were just outgrowing where they were, and you hope that that's what West Virginia is getting right now. My first dealing with Russ Hodge was really good. I thought Russ was outstanding in his press conference, and my opportunity to talk to him there. But ultimately, it'll be determined on if they win or lose. And this is just the start of it this year. But I think it looks like a pretty good group they're putting together. Proof will come next year. I thought Darren DeVries did a pretty good job in having to rebuild from square one last year. Unfortunately, he just wasn't a guy who stuck around. But hopefully Coach Hodge is here much longer, and hopefully these players turn out to be as able to make that leap up to the next level, which is something you'd never know for certain. But it looks like he's got guys who have very nice resumes from where they came.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was thinking as you guys were talking, I'll ask both Craigs this question. I'm not sure all the years I've been following college sports, when you look at the football rosters, both rosters of the men and women, basketball, where you say to yourself, I don't know many of the players who are going to be starting and be stars next year. I mean, I made a complete list of the current roster in Mountaineer football, and maybe there are about 10 players that I could maybe put a sentence on. Are you guys in the same boat as I'm in, saying, I've got a lot to learn, because we're going to see a lot of new players in football, a lot of new players in men's basketball and women's basketball, and we're going to have to learn our way into this?
Well, I'll go first, Greg, and then I'll let you follow with it. But yeah, I mean, even for someone like me, this is my daily job is tracking this stuff. And I mean, I am still at a loss as exactly if you want to name a starting lineup. I can give you guesstimates, but in years past, I would be 95% certain of the entire starting, 22 in football and 5 in basketball. But now it's all guesstimate range, and it makes it hard for fans. I understand. I think at the end of the day, you're cheering for the team whose name is on the front of the jersey, to use the old saying. And not necessarily on the back. So, I mean, if you're a Mountaineer fan, you can still come out and watch. And if they're winning, you're still going to be excited. Yeah, but I'll admit it loses a little bit. Fortunately for Mark Kellogg, at least he has a couple of starters coming back that we know about and have seen play in the past, even though they have a lot of attrition themselves. But theirs is the old-fashioned type due to graduation. So, I do think, though, on the basketball side, until they get some guardrails in place to slow down the portal, I'm not certain this isn't going to be a constant everywhere. You said Baylor. I mean, who's got any more, stability in the coaching staff than Scott Drew at Baylor? But his roster's turning over, and they got money to spend to keep guys. So everybody's dealing with it.
Yep. Yeah, and I think just based on this past year, even with the basketball, with the fewer players, I spent half the season trying to figure out who was who, and I would be watching a game, and who's that guy? You just don't know him, and it takes a while to figure him out. But like Greg said, when you're a fan, you're a fan, and when you root for the Mountaineers and don't worry much about what's on the back of the jersey as much as you do the front. And I think back last last year at some point I was listening to uh, Mad Dog Russo on the radio. They were talking about it was the Caitlin Clark phenomenon was going on at that time, and they were talking about how it was good for women's basketball, the name recognition of Caitlin Clark and those types of things. And one of them made the comment that I bet you can't name, 5 people in the men's NCAA that are standout players. I said, well, part of the reason for that is they move around so much, you don't get to know them. Because as you're watching through the season, you see people playing for a team, and you learn those great players over a period of a few years, and that's part of the reason why you don't know these players, because you watch in the NCAA tournament, you watch and you see all kinds of people you didn't know played for this team or that team, and it's tough. It's tough on a fan, but again, you're rooting for your team, and at some point we have to think that there's going to be some parameters put on all this that will slow it down a little bit to where it's not going to be like it used to be, obviously, but at least slow it down some to where you can get those connections and learn those players and make feel like the team and that sort of thing. But regardless, you're going to be a fan no matter how it goes, and hopefully at some point they get some of this under control. I want to ask one thing. I know our time is running a little short. I wanted to kind of jump off the team's prospects there just for a few minutes and ask Greg. You guys do that show 5 days a week, and
actually 6.
And 6
Sunday too, yeah. Monday through Friday with Tony, and then Sunday with Travis Jones. So yeah, 6 to be technical.
And of course, I had my own show for a while. Frank and I do this show. I'm just interested in. I know with my show and doing this one, I was pretty much overwhelmed with trying to keep it all together and remember, what guest am I talking to tonight? Who's on this show tonight? That show. How do you prepare? I mean, 6 nights a week, and I know it's a job. I get that, but there's still people don't understand. A lot of prep work goes into this. It's like calling games. You don't just walk in and sit down and call a game without doing some preparation. You don't sit down and do a show without some preparation. And you guys do such a great job. I'm just curious, what's a day like for you to get prepared? Do you prepare a week in advance, a day in advance, or do you do like me and just fly by the seat of your pants?
Well, sometimes it is fly by the seat. I'll admit that, though. All of us really. I mean, so much of our day is covering West Virginia athletics that I sort of assume that my whole day is prepping for the show that night. Even though I may be writing a story rather than talking to someone, but I'll schedule some guests at times. But Tony handles a lot of that in terms of, I guess you can call it production, in lining up guests. If he's not doing it, Brad or I will do it, and we'll bounce some ideas off of each other. But we don't have these big pre-show meetings. We all sort of have an idea of what we're going to do. And we've done it together long enough that I think we're all comfortable with. Okay, I mean, for instance, tonight we had the Glenville wrestling coach on, who's 3-time Mountain East Coach of the Year and is a former Mountaineer wrestler. Well, we knew him, we knew the situation, and we were able to step in and I think had a pretty nice interview with him. But so we can go off of the Mountaineer tangent a little bit and go other directions, but. I'll give Tony credit. He's usually the one who schedules most of the guests. And that's because, heck, he knows everybody in the state. Everybody in the state knows him.
Right. Yeah, and I have to say it does make it easier. Frank takes care of guests usually for us, and that makes it a lot easier on me. Like I said, I just show up and fly by the seat of my pants and hope it goes okay. And I never know where I'm going to be or what room I'm going to be in, or much less who I need to get scheduled. So I'm not real good at that. So it's a credit to you guys though for putting it together the way you do, because it's just seamless. The show just flows along, and I do enjoy sometimes when you have the high school players on or or the early college. Those are the hardest interviews to do in ever. It's so hard to interview those young kids, and I always enjoy listening to you guys because the way you fill in that dead space when they answer yes or no, or just stop in the middle and leave you hanging. I like the way you guys deal with that.
Yeah, those can be the most challenging. There's no doubt. And I think back to when I was 16, 17, 18, I couldn't have done a radio show or even a short interview. I'll give Tony credit for that because of his personality. He's able to draw stuff out of
Yeah.
those type of guests better than anybody that I know. So I always like to make sure if I'm going to get a recruit on or just a typical high school kid, Tony's around because he can draw stuff out of them the rest of us can't.
How about the meat pies? Were they really good?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not every one of them. Oliver Straw, the Australian, and we had a listener send us meat pies from Australia. I mean, they were, cold packed and dry ice. So I found them. They had a little bit of pepperoni roll to them because it was a flaky crust surrounding meat. So it was different. Some they had, I think they had 4 flavors. Some were good. I liked. Others were, but it was fun being on with Oliver Straw because he's got a great personality. I think he'd like a little flavor of home when he joined us.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed. I was working in Morgantown at that time, driving to
Mhm.
Bridgeport, Ohio, every day, and I was listening. And started listening to those, and that was very entertaining. And you talked about being 16, doing interviews, that sort of thing. I laugh because I did a little. I had a doctor I go to. I did a little promo for them. They asked me if I would care to do one of testimonial, and I did it, and we did it in one take. And the lady's like, "My gosh, it's like you've done this before." And I'm like, "Listen, I said, I'm 63 years old. I've made a fool of myself plenty of times. I don't worry about that kind of stuff anymore. So that camera doesn't bother me one bit." Frank, before we go, you want to follow up with anything, and before we wrap up?
I was going to say one of the things that I can tell you, you have an ardent watcher in Dave Voigthofer from Moundsville,
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
Dave was at Kegler's last week at our show. Had a chance to have lunch with him too, and he's a dear friend. And he's on a quest to basically try to get to all of the major college football stadiums and watch a game between
Ooh.
now and the time the master calls. But one of the things, and I get these texts, he said, I love writing in to the show. And twice you guys actually read it on air. And he's so tickled. Probably 10,000 people got texts from Dave. I was on State Line, I was on the sports line, statewide sports line, and it's great. He actually shows us the clip. He's got that
Well,
clipped out. So
that's great. I'm glad he enjoyed. How many stadiums has he been to? That's a cool quest.
oh, I think it's 60, and
Oh wow.
I was at Michigan State for a long time after WVU, and he's coming to the UCLA Michigan State game in October. And then what we try to do, he can't come to one game. We got to go to a MAC game too, so
Sure.
he can he can make it's a twofer, two
Yeah.
games in one weekend. And so we're going to try to go to an Eastern Michigan game or a Western Michigan game. In fact, we may have to go to 2 games in one day.
There you go. My
Oh my God!
brother-in-law coaches at Central Michigan, so yeah,
Wow.
my job has gotten me to many stadiums, but I've never counted them up. I don't know if I've been to 60. I'll have
Oh
to check that out, and that's 35 years of doing this. So
yeah, and what's even more fabulous, he drives.
oh
He drives everywhere. So yeah, but you have a big
Yeah,
fan in Dave.
well,
that's right.
I'm glad Dave enjoys it, and I hope his quest kids. What are there 135 FBS programs now?
Yeah.
I hope he gets to all 135.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. Hey, you mentioned being on the statewide college show. I another, like I said, I've embarrassed myself plenty of times. This was another time I did this. I was coaching still, and we held a tournament every year. We called it the West Virginia Hit Tournament, and I was president of the group. And I'd been on the show a couple of times, and I think if I remember correctly, it may have been Kyle Wiggs, maybe. I can't remember who exactly it was, but I've been on the show a couple of times, and I was scheduled to be on this one particular night, and I got home from practice. I was wore out. I was sitting here in the chair for a couple of minutes. Next thing I know, I woke up and it was 8:30. My phone had been blown up. I slept through the show and missed my call. And I thought, this is the most embarrassing thing I've ever
happens to everybody.
I should have texted to apologize, and he ghosted. So I said, oh, I'm done. I'll never be on there again. My last hurrah.
Oh, boy.
But I pulled tricks like that a few times. But anyway, yeah, it's always, when you get on that show, that's a big deal. That's a big deal because everybody in the state listens to that show. Greg, we can't tell you how much we have enjoyed this, how thankful we are that you took the time to come on with us. We wish we had another hour or two that we could spend chatting with you because again, your knowledge and inside information with the Mountaineer programs is phenomenal, and we rely on you and we depend on you for that information, and we appreciate you more than you know.
Well, I thank you guys for having me on. It's been a joy.
All right, Frank, anything before we go?
Oh, just great. Thank you so much, Greg. It's what you do and what Tony does and Jed Drenning, and I could go on and on and on. It's really top drawer. I mean, compared to other schools, if you're a Mountaineer fan, you're blessed.
No, I appreciate it greatly. It's like I said, it's a labor of love. So it's not been a day of work yet in the last 37 years.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Greg. We appreciate you.
No problem, guys. You have a good evening.
All right. You do the same. Greg Hunter, folks. And Frank, I tell you, you listen to these guys, and Greg, I've listened to him for a long time, and I can remember when he first started on the show once a week. He was talking about, and just such a natural and just so knowledgeable, and you listen to him and you just feel like you know him just from listening to him. You get they had those personalities that you're just drawn to. So a lot of good memories listening to those guys and Greg too. It's been always fun to listen to them. I always look forward to it.
Yeah, they're steady. That's there's tremendous consistency. They're steady. And I would say another thing, when you consider what we see now, particularly these days, with a lot of bloviation in sports media, these guys are not that way at all. They're not into their own selves. There's no ego. There's no look at me. There's no one-upmanship. It's just steady. And they just, as Craig said, you can tell they work well together. And, when we had Tony on about a year ago, a lot of insights. When Jed Drenning was on, it was like almost I wanted to take notes. These guys are smart. They're consistent. They're fan-centered. There's no ups or downs. It's just straight at you. And we're blessed as Mountaineer fans.
Yeah, and I that's part of the reason they have such a following. I mean, of course, we're all Mountaineer fans, so everybody wants to know what's going on in the programs and that sort of thing. But it's not always Mountaineer talk, and it's just fun to listen to and enjoyable to listen to, as well as informative. And I think that's why there's such a following, and why people listen. And it's always fun. And again, it's not like having to listen to what's the guy's name on ESPN, Smith, or the guy that's so loud and boisterous. I can't remember his name now, but I thought if you had to listen to him every day, how painful that would be. But these
Stephen A.
Fun.
Stephen A.
Yeah, Stephen.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's his name. I could.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So you listen to that foolishness. And, and he's I'm sure a knowledgeable guy, and obviously he is, but still, there's a little self promo going on there, and I don't particularly care for that. But I'll listen to these guys. It's just just like welcome them into your home. You sit and listen and laugh along with them, and get information from them. It's just a good thing. So fun,
it's wonderful.
Fun. Great to hear.
Just wonderful.
Yeah, just always admired the work that they do. So you want to mention next week's?
And Darren will put up the Next week, we're going to have, and this is not a household name for a lot of folks. Part of it is the position he played, linebacker. Another is the era, early Don Nealon. But I had a chance to get to know him, Mark Parsons, who does an awful lot of work for us, and we always appreciate Mark in terms of lining up guests. Said you got to have Derek Christian on the show. And as you know, he was one of your favorite players back in the day, early to mid 80s. And it was a wow, right?
Yep, absolutely. I talk to my brother about this all the time. We were in the stands when he first played, and I remember telling my brother, "Man, I like that number 6." I said, "That guy's good. Watch him." So we started really paying close attention, and he became my favorite player. I was like, "Yeah, that guy's a baller," and I loved watching him. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so I had a good long talk with Derek. Unfortunately, we would have had him on sooner, but his father passed away. But he's going to be with us next week, and we're pleased to say, talking about baseball, and the timing couldn't be better. We're working on getting a date for Coach Mazie and Amanda Mazie together. We're going to do another husband-wife interview.
Yeah.
Mark lined that up, that date, and we're also going to have Kevin Koken, who was a regular on Wolfman's Call. Kevin was a great offensive lineman center on those great Mountaineer teams. And so we'll continue to do our best to, this is our 70th show tonight. Boy, it's gone very, very quickly. And
hard to believe it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's really been great. So it'll be Derek next week. And then we'll take off from there and give fans who will be coming on when, and we'll get the dates out there. But Derek Christian will be our guest next Wednesday, Mountaineer Locker Room, then and now at 7 o'clock on New River Network, and also the voice of college football.
Yep, that'll be a lot of fun. And you mentioned the Mazies, and of course she'll be a great interview. She's well schooled in the broadcast department. She's done a lot of broadcasting for WVU, so I'm sure she'll slide right in and be a great guest. And I know Derek Christian will be. He's got a good history coaching and doing other things, and it's going to be fun to talk to him. And like you said, we'll be putting out the word about who's going to be on and the following shows coming up. And hope everybody will tune in. We also want to mention too, Frank, our good friend Mike Dunlap, still recovering in the hospital and seems to be improving. And we want to send our best wishes out to Mike. He's helped us on the show a lot. We're looking forward to getting him back on with us as soon as we can.
Yeah, he's really looking forward to the football season. And as you know, it was his birthday this week. And so he's been to hell and back. And so it's appreciate you acknowledging Mike. I know we both talked with him this week, and he loves being on the post-game show after the football games, and we're looking forward to that.
Yep, sure are. All right, well, that's going to do it for another Wednesday. And Frank, as always, absolutely enjoyable. Great guest tonight, Greg Hunter. We appreciate him again. We appreciate everyone for tuning in and checking us out. Mark Parsons, thanks to him again for helping us out with the guests so much. He does a great job for us. We appreciate him. But thanks to you for tuning in and watching, and we look forward to coming to you again next week on the Mountaineer Locker Room. Then and now here on the New River Network and the Voice of College Football. Have a great evening, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Good night.